Welcome back to Sometimes Love Isn't Enough, the Parenting Through Challenges podcast. I am your host, Angie Grant. And for today's episode, I actually want to follow up from last week's episode. Last week, if you haven't yet heard it, oh man, it was a good one. I definitely recommend you go back and listen. I walked you through why everything feels so chaotic right now and what's really happening at a much bigger level than the chaos that's happening in your home. Because we see it all around us, right? We see people in every aspect of our life feeling more overwhelmed, more frustrated, more chaotic, more out of control. And it's not because we're all broken. There's something happening at a big energetic level. It's shifting and it feels scary and unknown. But having this awareness about what's happening outside of us can really empower us to step up to what's really happening inside of us as well. Today, I want to take what we talked about last episode and make it more practical. I shared a couple of examples in there, but today I really want to dig in because you've been listening to my podcast, I hope. Maybe this is your first episode. If so, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. But you've been listening to my podcast or other podcasts, you've been reading books, you've been listening to expert advice. And so you know what to do, but then your kid refuses to put their shoes on. And suddenly, none of anything that you just learned seems to matter. You're right back to reactive mode. I often talk about this as the knowing doing gap. And when I first learned this concept, when I was becoming a certified mindset coach, when I was first learning this concept through the work of Bob Proctor, I had learned that on a bit of a surface level, that sometimes we know what we need to do. Our mind knows, we've learned, we've heard, we've seen, and yet our body does something different. Our mouth says something different than what we know we need to do. He called it the knowing doing gap. And essentially, through his teachings, what he talked about was this concept that we can know something, but it isn't actually our knowing that creates our actions. It's actually our strongly held beliefs. And our beliefs fuel our emotions, and our emotions fuel our actions, and our actions create our results. So we can have this new idea or learn this new concept or be told for the 100th time how to do something different. But if we're still holding a strongly held belief, or I would also now say, now as I've evolved and I've learned, I would say that it's our belief or it's our nervous system reactive pattern. And I think that although they're different, right? Your belief system is different than your nervous system reactivity. They are different, but oftentimes I think they play in tandem, right? Our nervous system is reacting to what it believes to be true. So the idea of control, we've been talking a lot about control here on this podcast. And if your nervous system is reacting because you have this perceived loss of control that is also so strongly tied to your belief that you must have control to stay safe. If you hold on tightly to this belief that if I lose control, everything falls apart, the family falls apart, nobody will know what to do, the kids won't get up for school, nobody will be fed, everybody will starve to death, right? These are things that I hear parents say. If I don't maintain control, everything will fall apart. Well, that is a very strongly held belief for so many parents. And that belief is interwoven in the way your nervous system is reacting. And when this is happening for us, it's not because something has gone wrong. In fact, it's perfectly normal. It is the way you're wired. It's the way I'm wired. It's the way we are all wired to react out of old patterns, to react based on our strongly held beliefs. Because quite frankly, if we weren't designed that way, we would expend so much energy having to think through everything that we did. So it's a necessary part of our makeup, and yet sometimes it can really hold us back. So to my point, right? Having this cognitive awareness about a different way to parent, a different way to show up for our kids, that's important, right? We first have to have awareness because we can't just regulate our nervous system and then magically know how to respond to our kids. We can't just create calm and peace in our body and get ourselves out of that reactivity cycle and then know what to say to empower our kids. I mean, some of us do, but I think, right, to regulate your nervous system, but still have all of the old patterns of parenting within you as the only way that you've really known or experienced parenting, it, it you'll just end up back in that loop. Awareness isn't the part that totally changes the behavior, it's the regulation. And this is why it feels so hard. It isn't because you're not smart enough, or you're not trying hard enough, or you don't want it bad enough, or you don't believe that you can do it even. It's that it isn't you deciding that you want to revert back to old patterns. It's your nervous system reacting. In fact, it's your nervous system reacting in a fight, flight, or freeze response. Most of the time, if you're a parent who's reactive, right, the kids are fighting and you yell at them, knock it off, right? That's a that's a fight response. If instead of yelling at the kids, if when the kids fight, you go and decide you need to grab a glass of wine or check out onto social media, I would call that a flight response. And for some of us, we just freeze and we just do nothing. It causes us to perhaps panic inside, and we don't know what to say to the kids, and we don't know how to help ourselves, and we just freeze. This isn't you're not doing anything wrong. You're being human, and it's patterns from childhood. It's patterns that have been created from repeated practice, patterns created from being overstimulated yourself, patterns created from generations from long before you ever even met them, are passed down, not just in the way that your parents taught you or spoke to you or reacted to you. It isn't just that, right? It's in the way that your parents and your grandparents and your great great grandparents' genes express themselves. That when we're in these reactive patterns, it changes the way that our genes express themselves in us. And so it you're not choosing to react, your body's doing the reacting for you. But that isn't a free pass either, right? Like again, I'm not here to say that you're doing anything wrong, but once you know that you're stuck in this pattern, it's up to you to choose to do different and to break that pattern. So, yes, currently, right now, your body is reacting to what's happening, but I implore you to make a choice about how you want to start responding to your kids, because that's where it starts. That is where we start changing these patterns. So the old way is about controlling our kids' behavior. The new way, what I've been talking about over the past couple of episodes is really this understanding and leading our kids, empowering our kids. Because in the old way, we were really looking at that our child's behavior was a problem to fix. And I really want to encourage you to explore the idea that the behavior isn't a problem to fix, but rather information for you to understand better what they need. When I think about how this kind of plays out in everyday life, I wanted to share a couple of examples with you to really start to get your wheels turning about how to start making some of these shifts in your home. So, in the old way of parenting, right? So, imagine that it's bedtime and it's time for your kiddo to go to bed, and you've said, like, hey, it's bedtime, time to brush your teeth and get your jammies on. And your kid isn't listening. In the old way of parenting, we would react to that, right? I told you it's bedtime. I've told you 3 times, which is a reactive pattern where we perceive that we've lost control and we're trying to regain safety in our own nervous system by controlling our kids. In this new way of really really helping to empower our kids, what this might look like is to say, I can see that your body isn't quite ready to stop yet. Do you want to hop to bed or do you want to tiptoe to bed? Or I can see that your body isn't quite ready yet. Do you need one more minute? Or what can I do to help your body be ready for bed? Really, really reflect on the difference between the two of those. One is authoritative and an instruction that is designed around control. And the other is seeing an unmet need. Perhaps your child needed to feel like they were in control. And when you told them it was bedtime, they felt this energetic need to feel empowered. And so they refused. Or maybe they're a generator type and they still haven't yet burned off all of their energy for the day. And so asking them to just turn it off and go to bed feels misaligned to them. Or perhaps your kiddo doesn't feel like their need for connection has quite yet been filled up today. I know when I was first working with kids a couple of decades ago, I was taught that many of our kids' behaviors are attention seeking. And I've really come to a place where I really challenge that because although, yes, they want attention, it's not because they're mischievous or manipulative or, you know, just hungry for attention. What I really want to explore for myself and shifting my own way of thinking is really looking at that attention seeking behaviors, looking at connection seeking, because we all have this human need to connect with others. I mean, it's a mammal need, right? You watch any nature show and you'll see that mammals need to connect. And our kids do too. I can't remember the number, but I had heard recently that kids need it was something like more than 50 positive touches a day. And so when it comes to bedtime and you tell your kiddo, hey, it's bedtime, time to get your jammies and brush your teeth, if they decide to go dump out the puzzles or they decide to um or they start, going through books or they flat out refuse, no, I'm not going to bed. And your response to that is to physically guide them up to bed or to help them pick up their toys. What if the unmet need there was really a deep need for connection that they don't feel like they got what they needed for that day? And although the physically guiding them up to bed isn't a positive connection, to them it might feel like it's better than nothing. And I'm not saying that you're giving your kids nothing, but really wrapping your head around that idea of what if that behavior that we look at as a defiant or a problematic refusal to go to bed is really our child expressing an unmet need and a need to burn off some energy, a need to connect, a need to feel empowered, or something else. Really, in this example, it's about teaching our kids autonomy within a boundary and also teaching our kids how to really playfully regulate themselves. Because when we exert control, that oftentimes triggers our kids and then they're dysregulated. And then we're more dysregulated and then everybody's frustrated because we perceive the kids weren't listening to us and we took back control. Where instead, if we approach them with curiosity and empowerment, we're helping and showing them how to stay regulated. Or in another example, you tell your kiddos watching TV or playing on a tablet, and you give them that warning, right? Like 2 more minutes on the tablet, and then we're all done. And they have a meltdown. The timer goes off, or you give them that final, like, okay, time to turn it off. And our kiddos have a meltdown. It's so common, and there's so many other reasons for that. I recently did an episode about this as well. But our kids have a meltdown. And in our old ways of parenting, of authority and control, is us demanding, turn it off now. I told you you need to turn off your tablet. I'm really taking a step back, right? Our kids are having a meltdown about turning off their tablet or the TV or whatever it might be, and thinking about this new way of empowering our kids to meet them where they're at and to say something like, "Hey, I know it's really hard to stop when you're in the middle of something. Do you want to pause or do you need another minute to finish this level?" And I get it, right? Our kids will sometimes ask for a minute and then say, "Wait, wait, wait, I need one more minute. Oh, wait, 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 I need one more minute." But really, with each more minute, to go through the same process of pausing, really reflecting on what is that need that they have and how can I help them feel more empowered as opposed to exerting my authority and taking control. It's doing things to help our kids to feel regulated, to transition away from things that they really like, to maybe doing things that they don't like so much. And, I know in old mindsets of parenting, that idea of like, yeah, well, we all have to do hard things. Yeah, we absolutely do. But perhaps that isn't the time to do hard things, right? Moving away from something our kids really enjoy doing or that is designed to like draw them in and designed, technology is designed to keep our kids really addicted. And when we react to this, right, they're so drawn in and many of our kids can feel so regulated when they're watching a video or playing on a tablet, right? You look at a kiddo who is watching their favorite TV show and they're in the zone oftentimes. It feels calming and regulating to them. And then suddenly we abruptly stop that. We exert control. We take away their power. We don't listen to what they're saying. That is the old way of parenting. With a new, more empowering, more aligned way of parenting, imagine if you asked them a question that was aligned with their type and asked them, for example, "Are you ready to stop?" Or "Do you need one more minute?" Or "Would you like me to turn off your tablet? Is that easier for you?" And I don't mean that in a threatening way, right? That I know that the tone of that phrase can go both ways, right? "Do you need me to turn off your tablet for you?" I know I've said that before, right? Because I feel like I've lost control. But that idea of asking our kiddos, "Would it be easier for you if I turned off the tablet?" Or is it easier for you if you turn off the tablet? But to really teach our kids how to transition away from things that help them feel regulated to things that might be harder for them. And to teach them how to do that in a way that doesn't put your relationship on this emotional roller coaster with them and helps you really honor the experience that they're having, right? To say, like, "Wow, you look so calm when you were watching that movie. I bet that felt really good. Right now, it's time for us to move on to the next thing, but maybe we can find a way in brushing our teeth that feels calming to you too." I could sing. We could rock back and forth. You could brainstorm with them some ideas to help them recreate some of that good feeling while they're doing that next thing that they don't like so much, right? Or in the next scenario of when your child says no to you, right? You ask them to do something and they bark back at you, no. In our old way of parenting, where we felt this loss of control, our reaction was, "You don't get to say no to me. You're not the boss. You're not in charge here." These are all words that I have said or heard in my life, right? "You're not in charge." But that sends several messages to our kids. It tells them that there's a hierarchical structure here in your family and they need to be compliant, right? And we talked about that in a recent episode about the dangers of compliance with our kids. But it teaches them that there's a hierarchy and they're at the bottom of it. It also teaches them that you are reactive, that their words triggered a reaction in you, and which can cause them to question their self-worth. It can cause them to question their sense of power. When we dig our heels in about the words that our kids use, we teach them that their words aren't really safe. And we teach them that when they're trying to assert themselves, when they're trying to feel more empowered, we teach them when we say, you don't get to say no to me, we teach them that their words don't matter. So, what if instead of you don't get to say no to me, we considered responding with, I really hear that you don't want to. I thank you for sharing with me that this is hard. We still are going to do this thing. So, do you want some help or do you want to do it by yourself? Right? It isn't about letting go of all of our boundaries. It isn't about letting the kids take over control. It is about hearing and seeing our kids, empowering our kids, and helping them feel safe to express what they're experiencing. It's about holding a boundary without having to overpower our kids. So if your parenting feels chaotic, if you as the parent feel dysregulated, none of this really works, right? I had shared an example earlier where the tone of the words that we use matters a ton. And when we're dysregulated, our tone often sucks. Our tone can create a sense of a lack of safety with our kiddos. It can cause our kids to feel disempowered in the tone that we use. Our tone matters more than the words that we use. And so, really doing the work on our energy matters because you can say all the right words with the wrong energy and it won't land the way that you want it to with your kids. And even when we know all of this, I know I'm going to sound like a broken record when I say this, but even when we know all this, even when we're working on regulating ourselves, you're going to yell again. You're going to react again. But again, we get to repair. We get to show our kids that it's okay to make mistakes, and we get to show them that it wasn't their fault. I know in traditional or the last few decades of parenting, we were taught that the parents misbehaved because the kids weren't in control. We were taught, and many of us say, I wouldn't lose my cool if you would just behave. I wouldn't have yelled if you would have just listened to me. I can't tell you how many times I've heard parents say, I wouldn't yell at the kids if they would just listen the first time. But it isn't their job to listen to you the first time. It isn't their job to even listen to you the third or fourth or 10th time. It is our job to figure out what those unmet energetic needs are and to show up for them differently. But we're still going to mess up. We're still going to say the wrong things. We're still going to blame our kids sometimes. And it's important for us to repair. It's important for us to say things like, I really don't like how I reacted earlier. I'm so sorry for that. It was not your fault. I wasn't regulated enough to respond to what was happening. And I'm working on that. So, this all like talking about these different examples about how to really step up into this new energy that we're all going through. It it really asks us to understand energetically what our kids need. Our kids all need different approaches. And I've shared a couple of ways to kind of the very basics about asking questions of our kids, but it's so much deeper than that, so much more intricate in really understanding our kids. But we have to start somewhere, right? We can't know all of the energetic needs of our kids all at once, right out of the gate, right? Once we know their energetic needs, then it becomes easier to understand the mistaken motivations that are fueling their behaviors. And when we understand their mistaken motivations, then that gives us a key place to help regulate them and regulate ourselves so that we don't stay stuck in this loop that isn't working for us. It isn't working for them. It's causing so much chaos and frustration in our bodies. So This isn't about perfection. It really is about shifting patterns over time. I know you're not trying to be a perfect parent. There is no such thing, but I I trust in my heart that you are trying to become a more connected parent, and this is what I would love to help you do. If you're listening to this and thinking, yeah, I need help applying this to my kid, so this is where I can support you. I would love to meet with you for a connection clarity call. It's free, and I go through an assessment with you to really help you see where you're stuck. So if this feels aligned to you, trust your inner knowing when the timing is right for you, and I'll be holding space for you. So until next time, happy connecting.